it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to give you a 1-year update on my orchid haul from Gold Country Orchids. Now I got these orchids on Christmas Eve of 2020 and I'm just sitting here just wondering where the time went. I can't believe it's been a year and 2021 was a crazy year at that. But I'm going to show you how everything's going. Now you'll notice on this bud I have a little bug there. That's a thrip. So I've been dealing with a little bit of a thrip infestation in my collection. I've been treating them and it's not a big deal, and they're almost gone. So I'm very hopeful I won't see them again. Otherwise, I'm going to show you before and after footage of how these orchids have grown. Quite a few of them have flowered and some of them have been growing very vigorously. So I'm very happy with this haul and I'm going to show you how everything went. So first up is the Dendrobium Green Flash. So when I first got this, it had not bloomed yet, and this is the second time that it blooms for me. The first time it opened, the buds were a little bit wonky, but this second time, it is much better. Now, I've been having issues with thrips, as I mentioned, so I've been treating this orchid aggressively with neem oil. I do have a stronger pesticide that I'm using that's working, so I won't be burning the leaves as much, but that's totally my fault. But as you can see, when I first got it, it had a couple of canes going, and it's pushed out about 2 to 3 new canes, and every single cane had a spike on it, with the exception of the youngest ones. So this is a vigorous orchid. It is a Latoria type Dendrobium, so I expect those blooms to last a very long time. Up next is one of my favorites from this haul. This is the Dendrobium Enob Purple, and this is also the second time that it blooms for me. So when I first got it, it had a very, very tight growth pattern, and I saw that it had previous spikes before, and what I noticed is that it spikes off previous growths. Now this is very easy to grow. I transitioned it to semi-hydroponics just like everything else in this haul with the exception of one. But as you can see, when I first got it, it was in an organic bark setup, and it was already blooming size. And I'm just very happy that it took very well to semi-hydro, and the blooms tend to last for a really long time. Now with that said, because it had thrips, right after this video, I just ended up cutting up the spike and starting the treatment, but I look forward to getting blooms next year. Next up, we have the Vanda Rainbow Stars. This one's also known as the Darwinara Rainbow Stars. Now, I transitioned this orchid into semi-hydroponics, which is tough for a Vanda typically, but I did it as an experiment. And to my surprise, this did really well. So as we take a look at the roots and everything, things are looking good. It even has a couple of new growths coming from the base of the orchid. Now, my only regret was potting it higher because with Neophonetia type hybrids, the new fans, they come from beneath. So when I repot, I'll give it some room. As you can see, between the Leca, the roots are still alive and it seems to enjoy the setup. Now, semi-hydroponics doesn't work that great for all Vandas, but I find that with orchids with Neophonetia in it, your success rate is much higher. Not all of them will like it, but they seem to tolerate it more than some of the bigger Vandas. All right, another Vanda in semi-hydro. This one is the Vanda Vietnamica. Now, when I got this orchid, they labeled it as Vanda Greenlight, and I didn't realize it was mislabeled until it bloomed. I didn't mind that it was mislabeled because Vanda Greenlight is the, Vietnamica is the parent of Vanda Greenlight. Now, in terms of growth, I've been very happy with it. It came to me with 2 different fans attached to the same orchid, if that makes sense, but it had a really nice root system. It had new root tips, so I was able to transition it very quickly. This one bloomed for me 2 or 3 times. It's very pretty. I'll link the video down below so you could check out the blooms. Next up, we've got the Brasso Catlia Hippodamia. Now, I'm very surprised with how much this one has grown. I really don't like the growth pattern on it because it tends to grow everywhere and I grow indoors, so I can't have it sprawling out too much. So as you can see, I have tied the new growths up And I actually have a growth growing downwards. I have to train that to grow up. But as you can see, when I first got it, it was about a third of the size of what it is now. So I'm very impressed with how it's been growing. I'm considering moving it to a basket just because it's so unruly. And when I transitioned it, a part of the success was that it had a new growth and new root tips. Now this orchid is prone to spotting because of the Eclandiae parent. And when I first saw it, I wasn't sure if there was an issue, but it's totally normal and a characteristic of the Catlia Eclandiae. Next up is the Dendrobium mini snowflake. So this is another Latoria type Dendrobium, just like the green flash. This one's going to stay nice and small. It hasn't bloomed for me yet, but it's grown significantly since I first got it. Now it's growing very happily in semi-hydro, and I find that for all of the Latoria types that I have. They have no issues transitioning over. Now, when I first got it, it was probably about a quarter of the size that it is now. It just had a couple of canes, and now it's just pushing out new growths left and right. And I hope that it'll bloom for the first time for me this year. It's a really nice one. It's got white flowers, and I will link the video of the original unboxing so you guys could check out all of the flowers for all of these. Alrighty, when I did the 6-month update, I was very impressed with how this Cattleya orchid grew because it just kept pushing out new growths left and right. So I'd say that this haul was quite vigorous. This one is Catlia Floralia Zazul. This orchid is, I don't know how I'm going to get it out of the pot. I'll probably have to cut it, but it's been a year and I have to repot it already. Compared to when I first got it, it just had maybe like 3-4 growths. And now I have 20 growths. This is a miniature Cattleya with cerulean flowers, so they'll be like blue and purple. And I'm really looking forward to blooming it. Now I need to get it situated in a better setup because when a pot is hard like that, it means that the roots are in every single air pocket and it doesn't have much room to breathe. So I'll be repotting this spring and hopefully we'll see blooms. Alrighty, next one is the Renins Handa Sunrise Prasang. Now this is another Vanda orchid. I transitioned it to semi-hydro. One thing to note is that when I transitioned these Vandas, I had them under a heat mat for a while. Now, this is also a Neo-Phoenicia type hybrid. It's growing really well vegetatively, but I'm not sure I'm convinced on it liking semi-hydro, so I may put it back into an organic setup. Reason being is when I press down on the pot, it has a little give, so I think some of the roots have died in there. Dead roots are normal, but I'll find out more once I repot this orchid. It hasn't bloomed for me yet. It was sold to me as a near blooming size orchid, so hopefully this is the year that it finally blooms for me. It's got pretty orange flowers. Up last, we have the Phalaenopsis sabrina. So this is the only one I put into an organic setup. It's in moss, and it's doing really well. And I'm surprised and happy to see that it finally has a spike. I'm surprised because it's a summer bloomer, and I wasn't expecting a spike until later on, till it got warm here in New York City. Now this orchid has grown really, really nicely. The root system is pretty extensive. When I first got it, it only had 3 leaves and it's pushed out 2 leaves, but the leaves that have come out are just huge. So I wonder how big this orchid is going to get. If you guys have a Phalaenopsis sabrina, let me know down in the comments below how big they get. I'm curious if this will get really large like the Phalaenopsis gigantea, but time will tell. I'm really looking forward to those blooms. I'm curious if they're fragrant. So I have the Phalaenopsis hieroglyphica, which looks a little similar, but that one's not fragrant, and I hope this one is. So we'll see. So that is a 1-year update on my haul from Gold Country Orchids. There's one orchid missing, and it's missing because it was gifted to my mom, and it was the BC Yellowbird, and that orchid has already bloomed, which is great. So I find that the orchids from Gold Country Orchids are really good. They're very vigorous. I haven't had any issues other than pests that I had on my own end, but otherwise I'm very happy with how these did. Anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments below if you have any of these orchids, and thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye, everyone.